Well, that's kind of a complex question, because when we look at where certain zonings take place for multifamily or single-family residence, it's going to depend on what that looks like. It's my understanding, we have a lot of insight on the multifamily and what's left to build, but it's my understanding we've built a lot of that out with the apartments. So I think for me, it's just a function of seeing exactly where the need is, where it makes sense, and then we take it from there. Mr. Solomon?
Unfortunately, I think part of the problem with this is that people have never been educated on the basic concept of you own your private property. All the land in Oro Valley is already owned by somebody, the government or a private individual. Every piece of land is entitled for certain uses based on its zoning. Just like if you own a single-family home and you want to put a swimming pool in, you can, and your neighbors can't say you can't. That's the same with all the property in the town. If it's zoned for single-family homes, then the person who owns that property can build single-family homes on it. If it's zoned for apartments, they can build apartments on it. And the zoning laws were put in place in some cases back in the 80s. They can be changed, but they were based on a master plan. For example, Rancho Vistoso was a master plan community. So you have to understand that the land and these rights pre-exist. Now what the town can do is we can regulate architectural standards. We can work out things with open space, and we've done that. And when I was on council, I put into place some of the newest, most strict architectural standards, particularly for commercial development. But remember, when you own property, certain rights go with that property based on the zoning.
Probably. I don't see that there's probably going to be a need for more apartments. I think we've done what we need to do. We're 90% built out in Oro Valley. So there's only 10% of vacant land that's going to be available, at least currently in town limits. There's a couple of state-owned land parcels that may come in at some point. One of them's huge, north of town, and the other's over by St. Mark's, west of St. Mark's. But I don't see, at least I don't foresee a need for apartments. I do think that we need to be sure, when I was plan commission, I always believed that the person living next to a vacant land had a right to believe that that land would stay that way unless there was an overwhelming reason why it needed to become more dense. And so everything we did in that was to try to find out if that overwhelming need existed. And then if we felt that it needed to happen, how could we work with the neighbors to be sure that some buffering that would mitigate the damage and the views were not in fact affected.